Hello everybody, today I'm back with another item for sale, this time an instrument. I know all you're seeing right now is a case that is in very good condition, by the way, but inside, as we open it up here, we see, ooh, it's a baritone saxophone. Now you're probably asking, what kind of baritone saxophone is that, Cameron? And to answer your question, it's a Martin Handcraft Committee Skyline baritone saxophone. I know that's a mouthful. It could really just be shortened down to a Martin Handcraft Committee, because there are several types of Martin Handcraft baritones, but this one in particular is the Committee model, and the engraving is the Skyline Engraving. So that's where the whole name comes from. So because this item is for sale, I would like to give you some useful information for you to know about the horn if you're interested in buying it, but I would also like to give you some historical information about the horn. But while it's sitting in the case right here, I would just like to talk about the case a little bit because there isn't really too much to say. For one thing, it's in great condition for how old the horn is. The horn is also in great condition for how old it is. It's from the 30s. But the case is pretty simple. It's this semi-contoured low B flat case. It's not a low B flat and low A case, it's just a low B flat case. And it comes with this little storage compartment right here. Very simple. It doesn't have any latches or Velcro. It just opens and closes, but it does a good job staying closed when the case is in travel and things like that. And as you can see in there, that's pretty much where the neck is stored. And of course, that's where, if you would like to, you could store your neck straps or mouthpieces or reed boxes, whatever else you have in your case. It's pretty big, and it goes pretty deep into the case, so you could fit quite a few items in there if you so please. All right, now that I said pretty much all there is to say about the case, now we could really get into talking about the horn. So let's start with when this horn is from. This horn was made from 1935 to 1936. Based on the serial number, I would say that it was probably made in 1936, because the serial number is 115,819, and the serial number range from 1935 to 1936 is 111,253 to 116,551. Some physical facts about the horn, something you can see loud and clear, is the lacquer, and something interesting about it is the body lacquer is actually a re-lacquer, but the keys are not. And some guy messaged me when I first had my listing up, and he told me some facts about the horn. You can tell me if it's true or not. It seems true just based on how it looks. I could tell that the horn was a re-lacquer, but the keys, he says, are made out of solid nickel, and they're not nickel plated, which means they're stronger and they last longer than, of course, something that's just plated in nickel. You know, it's brass plated with nickel instead of solid nickel, which is a stronger material. And I'm sure the body is just re-lacquered brass with this clear lacquer. From pictures that I've looked up of this exact model of horn, the original lacquer seems to be more of like a dark gold, which I would have definitely preferred over this clear lacquer that kind of gives it more of like a student horn vibe. Trust me, definitely not a student horn, but it kind of gives that vibe with like the brighter lacquer for sure. The next fact about the horn is its straight cut tone holes. This is probably the best visual I could give. It's the same throughout the entire horn, but obviously the largest pad cup and pad and tone hole is going to be the best way to see it. This horn up and down has straight cut tone holes. It doesn't have rolled tone holes, which I know a lot of vintage horns have. But yeah, this horn has straight tone holes. So I've never played a horn with rolled tone holes, but if you prefer straight over rolled, however you see fit, then this horn has straight cut tone holes. A couple more facts, more about the upper structure of the horn, are, for one, it has no fork F key, which would be about where my finger is pointing, which was pretty commonplace for a lot of vintage horns, and so it is for this one. This horn has no front F key, only the palm F key if you want to play that note. Speaking of the high notes, this is the high E tone hole and pad cup. It's really large, as you can tell, even the high F one too, which is kind of unorthodox. As you can see, it's like the same size as this B pad cup right there, and it's just super interesting I don't know why they chose to do that, but it definitely makes the horn look really unique. Interestingly enough, it actually does make the high E a little heavier than normal, but not heavy to the point of it being unusable or like too awkward for its own good. You definitely get a big open sound top to bottom, which is also pretty commonplace for a lot of older baritone saxophones for sure. A couple things that aren't on the horn in view right now that I would like to show you are the neck, for one, and of course on the old baritones, the octave pip on the neck is really cool, but something that is really rare to see factory is a neck brace, because especially a lot of vintage horns and just modern horns in general, over time, they suffer from neck pull down from being used over and over and over again. And of course, something like a brace pretty much completely keeps that from happening. So it's really cool that this is a factory part of the neck of this horn. Another cool add-on, I guess we'll call it, is this end plug that, by the looks of it, seems factory, which is really cool. So you get a factory end plug with this instrument. It obviously goes in the top of the horn right there. But yeah, it's all metal. It's pretty hefty. It goes in there nice. Keeps your horn less wiggly in the case. So that's always cool. If you're curious why I'm selling this horn, there are several reasons. And if you follow me on Instagram, or if you've seen my other videos on this channel, you probably didn't even know that I had this horn. And that's because I've really only played it a handful of times. And the reason why that is because I got the Mark 6 from my school, which I was pretty shocked about. So I've just been playing that horn because to me, it's the best horn I've played so far out of all the horns I've tried. But out of all the horns I've tried, this is by far the most different in terms of ergonomics and tuning and just overall feel, because it's the oldest horn I've ever played. I've played horns that are decently old, with the Mark 6 actually being the second oldest horn that I've played, the other one being a Yanagasawa Vito horn. But all of those horns have a modern feel and like modern-ish tuning, and just kind of those really vintage elements of this horn that you would need to take a little more control of. And just along with the fact that this horn feels so different, it doesn't have a front F. That's just kind of why I wanted to sell it, because I think that at this point in my musical journey, it would be a little too much to adjust to for how I'm trying to move. So along with the other stuff I'm selling and the money that I would get from selling this horn, that I would put all of that together to purchase a horn that I would hope would suit me a lot better than this horn did. There's really nothing wrong with it. As you'll see in a minute, I'll do some play testing. The horn plays perfect top to bottom. It has a big, dark, robust sound. It's just a lot of elements of this really old horn have been so different and a little hard for me to adjust to. So that's why I'm selling it. before I do any playtesting, I have a couple more things to talk about, and pretty much one last thing to really show that I want to talk a little more about, and that's the Skyline Engraving. I don't really know why I put quotes around it because that's pretty clear what it is. I know it's a little hard to see it on video, but the engraving here goes along the whole bell and kind of the other side, and I'll flip the horn just so that you can get a good look at the other side of it as well, but to also see the rest of the engraving. But most of it is on this side. You have an American flag right here. You have some stars with some, like, you know, lightning bolts. It's kind of like an effect. This also doesn't look like a hand-done engraving. It looks like a stencil engraving. But right here it says Martin, and then in cursive it says Handcraft, and then below that it says Elkhart, USA. And then if you look over here, that's where the skyline is, and these ripples are water, I'm assuming. And so it's kind of a look from, you know, kind of the ocean to the city. And there's the skyline, and these are like spotlights, I imagine, which ultimately highlight the name there with the American flag and an eagle and a star. So they definitely don't let you forget that this is an American-made horn. So I'll just kind of hold the horn here and point with my thumb, because this is really all that there's left to see. It's just this little like swoosh engraving, and then you see the rest of the name there and kind of just the other parts of the horn. Yeah, in terms of damage on the horn, these lines on the bell right here, which are just scratches, are pretty much all that there is in terms of damage. There's no dents anywhere on the horn. There's some blemishes here. Yeah, they're almost just like blemishes or scratches on the bell. That's pretty much it. Everything else looks really great. I've had a lot of people tell me that this horn, they're pretty wowed by the condition that this horn is in, for how old it is, of course. The only like really changed part about it in that time seems to be the relacquer, and of course it has relatively new pads that have hardly been used by me. I don't know when its last repad or overhaul was, but it's in great condition, of course. All right, last thing before I do a play test of the horn, here's the other side so you get a good look. Pretty pristine looking. Something that's a little different from normal also, but is pretty common on Martin baritones. One model of the Martin Handcraft had split bell keys, but pretty much everything else, all the other Martin horns, even like the newer committees and stuff like that, they have the bell keys on the same side of the horn as your legs, which kind of makes it a little difficult to play when sitting. Not difficult to play, but it could be a little bit annoying, you know, because then it's more likely that some part of your clothing or your leg can interfere with the instrument. Obviously there's key guards on it and whatnot, but you know, that can happen. It happens with me when I play bass saxophone, and that's probably why pretty much every horn you see today, the bell keys are on the other side of the horn. But in this case, both of them are pretty much in line on this side of the horn, and it's pretty cool low key structure there. And obviously you see the old style low pinky table. And kind of an interesting fact, this horn looks very similar to the Martin Imperial baritone, but this is not the Imperial, this is the Committee. The Imperial had a different engraving, and it had a nail file G sharp, and it was from the year prior. It was from 1934-ish. So this horn is from 35, 36-ish. But yeah, I hope this is a good enough look at the other side of the horn. You can see we got some bracing on the bottom with no damage, and really no other visible damage anywhere else on the horn. This horn in the case, just some quick shipping info. This horn in the case weighs 26.2 pounds, and the horn by itself weighs about 9.8 pounds. I weighed it without the neck or a mouthpiece on it. Just this horn as it is on screen, weighs 9.8 pounds. So if you were also curious. All right, finally time for the play test. I'm using a stock baritone mouthpiece with a knockoff Robner ligature and a Barry Woodwinds medium soft synthetic reed. So now you can give the horn a little listen. Little janky playing on my part, but hope you would like what you heard, and maybe it entices you to buy the horn. Clearly, you don't need much up here to make the horn sound fantastic. So, with that being said, thanks for watching. If you check out the listings, there will be way more pictures than any of the angles that I showed. I hope even if you're not interested in buying the horn, that you enjoyed some of the little facts and tidbits in this video. And if not, throw me a dislike. No, I'm just kidding. Please don't do that. Oh my God. Thank you. Goodbye.